Hey, good morning from Japan. I just want to tell you first the really, really important thing. When you've become ungrounded due to any kind of spiritual practice, or Kundalini is overactive, you're feeling intense energy in your torso or in your head, or you're otherwise concerned about becoming disconnected from reality for any number of mental or emotional reasons, and this includes hallucinations, disassociation, or any other concerns that might not be precisely connected to what we call reality. Reality as in actual reality, rather than social consensus reality. Becoming somewhat disconnected from the latter due to spiritual practice is normal, whereas becoming disconnected from actual reality is a danger sign. So don't worry, everything's going to be okay, but you do need to ground yourself, right? Stop practicing immediately. Limit your practice to just a few minutes a day if you're an ardent practitioner. Even discontinue entirely in favor of a reset, relaxation, vacation, or other mind body recreation, recreation. Another good grounding technique, and I'll tell you a few, besides temporarily eliminating all of the activating practices like meditation, visualization, breathing, just calming, grounding. It's principle number one in all of the traditional wisdom practices: Vishranti, calm, repose, silent stillness, quiet presence, just acknowledging reality as it is, be as a being for a little while. Lie on the earth, of course, nature practices, a big rock, warm yourself, let the excess energy flow from your body into the earth. Anytime throughout the day, become aware of the soles of your feet touching the earth. Just imagine the excess energy flowing through your feet into the earth. Acknowledge her, Mother Nature. She is Kundalini. Acknowledge her as your mother. She birthed you. It's a very, very, very big idea. So when you're touching the earth, feel the connection to your own mother. Nourish yourself with grounding foods. You can look up on the Google Vata, V-A-T-A, Vata pacifying foods. It's an Ayurvedic concept. Look on any Ayurvedic website for what is Vata and what are Vata pacifying foods. And this could include meat or dairy. Just temporarily, even if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, you're looking for balance because right now you're off balance. So kind of bring yourself back to the center. A good go-to is something like tuna pasta. Tamasic foods, in the tradition that gives us Kundalini, we have this broad concept of the division of reality called gunas, tamas and sattva. There's a couple. You can look this up as well, guna, G-U-N-A, what this division is. And the constitution of a human being is similarly divided into these gunas, just like the universe, as above, so below. But in this construct, there's something called tamasic disposition, tamasic constitution, tamasic characterization of the universe. And even tamasic foods are indicated when you're ungrounded, when Kundalini is overactive. Might even need to drink a beer, a dark beer. Milk chocolate is good when Kundalini is overactive. Moderate exercise is good every day. Make sure you hydrate, make sure you're sleeping well. Avoid consuming any psychoactives during this time. You know, we do have a tendency to rely on our cannabis sometimes, right? Hopefully not other stuff, not mixing. But, cannabis has an interesting way of stimulating the neuroreceptors. And it's a really, really nice plant. All that nature gives us is really, really nice, but something that activates the psychophysical organism more than what is normal is not recommended when you're ungrounded. So perhaps give yourself a little bit of a break. There are meditations, particular meditations like the River of Light meditation. You can contact me for that if you don't have that or don't have access to that. There are a lot of nice meditations on my website. Once a day, you might want to lie down on the floor and let yourself shake or vocalize or scream, whatever facilitates release. Maybe not more than 10 or 15 minutes. We don't want to dive totally into that and lose ourselves in over emotionalism either, right? We're just looking for a little bit of release if we can do that in a safe space. Sensual meditation every day, feeling your body, exploring the bark of a tree, touching it, feeling its texture, feeling the leaves, just connecting yourself to reality. Lying on the ground, watching the insects go about their business, smelling the flowers. Letting a little bit of candle wax drip on your skin, feeling the heat, connecting yourself. Mindfully eating, savoring texture of food. Full body massage with oil, touching, feeling back into reality. And just repeat all of this. Repeat all of these steps until you're grounded, until you're right back into yourself, not thinking about the other. Any of these steps should be good enough to keep you grounded or bring you back from wherever you are. And if you feel that your case is more extreme, these visualizations giving you over overstimulation, right, then it's time to reach out to a professional, right? Even if there is no professional in your local community, you can reach out to somebody online. And I'm there for support too. You can check out my website, Umamaya, Umamaya. But at the same time, I think regarding this concept called Kundalini, which was given to us by the Eastern tradition, it's not a pop cultural reference, no matter Jung, no matter Gopi Krishna, no matter Arthur Avalon brings it into the Western consciousness. Kundalini is a classical tantric concept. And all of the sages of the wisdom tradition for thousands of years, although warning against imbalance and encouraging that we have a slow and steady approach to this kindling of Kundalini, which is synonymous with awareness, one thing that we need to really keep in mind is that the Kundalini rising is not supposed to hurt. Right? There's a systemic misunderstanding in pop culture today. No matter millions and millions of people are sharing the same misunderstanding, it's still a misunderstanding. And, well, actually, there are several misunderstandings, but the one that stands out most is the psychophysiological side effects, the symptomatic expression as a result of spontaneous awakening that so many people are sharing. And that's not to say that this doesn't exist. It does exist, but it's a symbol of imbalance. There's an imbalance going on. There's side effects and symptomatic expression. It's the same as in your body. When your body is expressing symptoms, there's usually something going on, right? When your body's in health, when your body's in balance, your body's not reacting in any way that causes you discomfort or disease. And the trend to associate a Kundalini awakening with this symptomatic expression is affecting the mainstream broadly, and sadly, because the term Kundalini has become appropriated without really so much as a passing glance at the tradition that gave us the concept in the first place. Good research into what is Kundalini could very much set the stage for an illumination that would help you get over yourself, get back to the joy of living. Because what's awakening without joy, right? You know, back in the 1930s, Carl Jung warned Western audiences that the Western personality was simply not geared to deal with the likes of Kundalini. And there's a reason, you know, the common disposition and tendency towards spiritual emergency made the likes of Kundalini akin to putting a fire in the hands of children. In the 1980s, Dr. Lee Sanella, wrote a book questioning whether these experiences, which his psychiatric patients spoke about when referencing Kundalini, were rather psychotic than transcendent. And this emphasizes a very, very thin line between the experiences of awakening and what modern psychology calls something else. But if you're experiencing heart palpitations or migraines, rashes, paralysis, loss of sleep, loss of appetite, hallucinations, endocrine imbalance, any disorder of the parasympathetic nervous system, you must understand that none of that is related to Kundalini, except by the most tenuous of threads. You need to understand what is Kundalini. And in the simplest terms, Kundalini is the life force that binds the entire universe together. Your vital airs, that which is keeping you alive in this very moment, and the awareness that supports that. Because according to the wisdom traditions, this entire thing we call reality, the universe, that which generated this entire thing we call reality or the universe is but conscious awareness, love, flowing on a ground of being we call freedom, initiated by something really, really huge called will and primordial knowledge, going forward, something called volition. These three, will, knowledge, primordial volition, the three faces of the goddess, the three faces of Kundalini, three Kundalinis in the wisdom tradition, manifesting as Bindu, three places in the body, Bindu, the primordial point, that through which source comes forth into reality. It's a big deal. It's a big deal, Kundalini. It's not just a tremor up the spine. It's not just some physical energy coiled up down below. No, no. Reducing Kundalini to something so small is what the human mind would do. Kundalini is much bigger. And when your own awareness grows, when your own awareness broadens to reach out and touch reality as it is, we tend to become naturally grounded, naturally happy, feeling good, feeling good. Everything is good. But this tendency of the Western interest, and I know very well because I was there. You know, I grew up with this searching for mystic experience and these light switch answers that are certain that are suddenly going to turn me on, and wow, yeah, but that's not what it is. And this is what makes us get lost. Kundalini means something. It has a very, very specific meaning. It's awakening. The awakening of awareness is a very specific occurrence. It unfolds and it manifests in a very specific way. And if you're not experiencing that, then what you are experiencing is not Kundalini. Or rather, it's just a small part of the story, very, very small part, just as sitting right here in this room talking to you right now is a very, very small part of the story. It's the consciousness aspect of the Kundalini force, observing itself in a state of imbalance, itself being subsumed into the narrative of an identity that's caught up in habit patterns. And we don't like to look at this, our habits. Maybe that was a bit dense. I'll try to unpack that just a little bit. But basically, it means that there's just a whole lot more to the story, and it's really well worth the read. Shakti, Shakti. You ever seen this? This is called Anjali Mudra. We say namaste with this mudra. Mudra is a hand gesture, like Sacred Heart, Abhaya, Hridaya, Sacred Heart, courage, freedom, acknowledgement of strength. Be right before the heart chakra or the solar plexus chakra, mudras, hand gestures. This is Shiva and Shakti, Anjali, together. Shakti. These are Sanskrit words. Kundalini is a Sanskrit word, and it has several connotations to power. And as I said, you can imagine it as a force that binds the entire universe together. This energy that makes up everything, including us. It's nature. That's Kundalini, Mother Nature. The nature of human beings. And this concept comes to us from a tradition very, very, very old. And this concept, this tradition, considers us to be a part of this greater interconnected and unified reality. It's a oneness construct. From this tradition, we get this non-dualism idea. Very, very big, very, very big ideas. This force, this energy that we call Shakti or Kundalini, it's like the air we breathe. It feeds us. There's no separating ourselves from it. We are verily gods in human form, invested with the very same limitations and capacities that created us. Scaled down, right? Very few of us can say, hey, please rain. Watch the rain drop into the garden. The path and practice of coming to terms with a worldview that introduces us to both the idea of an ultimate reality and a unity of nature, as well as promising us the ultimate freedom of supernatural potential in alignment with a God that has evolved itself willfully and knowingly and actively from a condition of unbounded light into the human condition we all enjoy today, by endowing itself with a vast array of limitations and capacities, the very same limitations and capacities that we ourselves are invested with. This tradition is called Tantra, classical Tantra. This is not to be confused with Neo-Tantra of the West, which satisfies itself with only the sexual or sensual rights of a minor discourse found in the teachings of the Kaula, or the Trika, all of them. It's a very, very good treatise on the Tantras called The Light of Tantras, written by Abhinavagupta, and you can check into that because it is the source text. It's a great text. And there are several that have been translated by good translators of high integrity. But what a shame, because no, Neo-Tantra is not a tradition. The Neo-Tantric too acknowledges in one way or another that the goal is an evolution of sorts. Unfortunately, this new school does not unpack the original teachings on the whole in the same manner that, say, Neoplatonists sought to unpack and transform Plato's teachings. But this brings us back to Kundalini, right? Kundalini yoga or Kriya yoga. the cautions of the sages who first introduced to us her dynamics. You probably understand that yoga, in all of its forms, is an art or an exercise, a spiritual practice that is enjoyed by different people, different stages of development, practiced in different ways according to one's readiness and ability and inclinations and proclivities. Hatha yoga, the body yoga of poses and stretches and core muscle training and balance and breathing and the like. A newcomer to the path, a man or woman in their mid-30s looking for fitness or spirituality for the first time, but really never having ventured too far from the sofa before, would have to approach the practice of hatha slowly, right? The tendons would be tight, the muscles not quite toned and strong yet, and she would start with basic stretches and warming up routines before advancing to more intermediate flows, right? What would happen to her if her guru were to try to tie her into knots from the start? She'd break, right? Yeah. Hatha yoga is full of warnings, contraindications. Those suffering from sciatica, not attempt such and such. Those with asthma, not attempt such and such. It's common sense, right? Consider then what would happen if one's consciousness, right, were treated with unbalanced force. This is also a reason why the ancient traditions advocated for proper initiation onto the path under a qualified guru, right? Sometimes we slip, fall, break a bone. Sometimes our experience leads to trauma and dramatic breaks in the mind. Sometimes a dream can awaken within us glimpses of the ultimate. We come screaming back to earth because the visions burn our eyes. Sometimes we rise on the wings of grace, moving from one karmic rung to another, effortlessly. Sometimes we're enabled to leave the past where it lay, dead, walk fearlessly into a blank future with nothing but the awe of the miracle guiding our steps. Sometimes there are outliers and there are trends. The sages are in agreement. Adi Shankaracharya speaks about the beautiful, invincible Kundalini Shakti piercing the 6 chakras, entering the abode slowly, step by step. Kundalini Shakti is called the basic force of the body, the supreme power. When activated, the yogi attains liberation. Liberation from what? From existential suffering. When she's activated, you're not suffering anymore. This is what the sages say. Kundalini destroys all evils. She is the eternal, supreme consciousness, the seat of absolute knowledge. This is what they who know speak about the goddess, Kundalini. In no text, in no source text, in no time-honored text, is it ever mentioned that the Kundalini awakening brings about terrible physical side effects, the likes of which have become like so much more chaff on the modern social media meme? The sages cautioned us on what to expect were the force to become unbalanced. They cautioned not to use force, but to coax her with sweet words. And there's ample literature instructing in the contraindications to practice and the remedy to imbalance, because that is precisely what symptomatic expression means. Something is not balanced. Right? Illumination is liberation, and that means total and unequivocal release from mental suffering. Right? When she rises, she destroys all evils. She is supreme consciousness. Sure, there's dogma. We're not going there, right? We're looking at established wisdom traditions with centuries, right? Eons, verifiable experience to back up the veracity of a view that serves a purpose, one way or the other, right? The same way we acknowledge any other scientific claim, any other genre of intellection, right? There's evidence, there's proof. We can see it with our own eyes. Kundalini yoga, yoga philosophy in general, are an Eastern mindset, an Eastern art form and lifestyle that we in the West have to to a certain extent, acknowledge. And we've appropriated it, actually, and we've turned it to our own uses. But bridges span great divides, cultures, and predispositions exist, all the same. Taoist memes go down easy with a glass of wine. But if you haven't been brought up in the culture, Oriental thought, practicing the path of Tao, like many Chinese are born and bred to, it may not be as easy as digesting a meme, right? We can read Alan Watts until our faces are blue. It's not going to make us Taoist or relate to what he's saying any easier. And the yogis warn against the same, advocating for a purification of mind and body as absolutely necessary before approaching austerities, and long before proper meditation might even be considered. Proper meditation. You can just hear the screaming of the audience. Only meditation is going to awaken the Kundalini. It brings us to the question I know, what is meditation? Allow it to rise permanently. There is the spontaneous arising of consciousness, certainly, but it's only the dedicated devotion of being intent on piercing the veils in order to get at ultimate truth that is going to herald the complete shift in the narrative. Finally, allowing to go to that place where the narrative no longer exists. You know, they say that the grace of a guru is an extraordinary catalyst, and a Shaktipat, right, might lend a fleeting hand, urging the light of consciousness in the right direction. But Shaktipat is a descent of grace from the divine, not from a guru. The guru might whisper a singular word or a mantra or give you the truth in a moment, and that might stimulate the grace. But grace is something divine. It's not coming from a human being. So don't look for it in a man or a woman, although they might help guide you a bit. In the same manner that energy healing is a real thing. Some people can manipulate energy, certainly. That manipulation by a master of the arts of energy will manifest a physical reaction, right? Like a physically verifiable healing or a bubbling up of profound clarity or deep insight. Something good, something wholesome, but verifiable, right? Not just emotionally comfortable in the moment, right? Ah, it felt so good. I felt so warm and tingling. Yeah, it's not enough. Kundalini awakening means enlightenment. And that's a word that's been used far too casually in the last few years, decades. I don't know. There was an age of enlightenment in Europe. Everybody thought they were enlightened, like today. The masters, whomever you want to call master, exist to enlighten, to show the way, to guide into happiness and release from suffering, not create more suffering. The Sherpa wants to take you up the mountain safely so that you don't fall in the crevasse. But if your suffering has become more heightened due to some practice or someone's touch, if you're in pain, mentally, emotionally, physically, then something's wrong, not right, right? I read posts on social media daily of people being taken in by false gurus, paying for pain, giving away their innocence blindly in the hope of salvation. This angers me. I'm angered at the injustice. I'm angered, saddened for the loss of innocence. And even I might despair if it weren't but just another aspect of a larger story. One more layer that needs to be revealed. It's not hopeless, though this time, this what we call Kali Yuga, might seem so with all the suffering and power hungry who feed on that suffering. Good news. Suffering can be remedied by right action, right thought, right attention will be removed. Suffering is not the natural state. Return to balance is not difficult and does not take much time, actually, if you can just be mindful, employ some common sense, not give yourself into any hand holding out something that looks like candy. Take care of your health. Mind your food system. Understand the healing systems, the self-healing systems. Use meditation to still the mind somewhat. Right? Moderate your exercise. Control your speech. There's more. All equally simple and fulfilling ways to bring you onto the path of balance, the setting and stage for real awakening. Kundalini is your own mother, your own individual mother. She has tape recorded all your past, your aspirations, everything. She rises because she wants to give you your second birth. She's your mother. You don't share her with anybody else. Yours is different, somebody else's is different because the tape recording is different. We say she's the reflection of the Adi Shakti, who's called Holy Ghost in the Bible. But she rises without any difficulty at all. Hardly any time it takes. This is what Guru Hanandamayi Ma of the Siddha Yoga tradition says. Right? The Buddhists liken Kundalini rising to the walking of Buddha's middle path to enlightenment or liberation. Buddha was a master yogi who only decimated his body willfully through the most austere of penances, but it was very intentional. Neither do you have to do that. Also, did he realize that he didn't have to do that after several years? Kundalini is our nature. It's our energy there to nourish and support us and keep us whole mentally, physically, emotionally. She never makes a worry. The power of Kundalini is of absolute purity, innocence, auspiciousness, pure love, enlightened attention. It gives pure and total joy. It is the fullness of God residing within the human. When Kundalini is elevated, the result is a state of happiness, not giddiness, not a bliss that never knows anger or sadness or anything negative. No, an enlightened personality grieves consciously. An awakened spirit will anger at injustice and move to remedy it. There shouldn't be so much misunderstanding around the phenomena of enlightenment. Tantra, Kundalini, yoga. It's easy to see how it's resulted when the go-to texts show the common man like Gopi Krishna suffering from something that he calls a Kundalini awakening. He calls. So people will equate their own symptoms because good book, right? Nicely written and so powerful and so many people can relate, right? Yeah, but mass hysteria does not make something. The experiences that 20th century mystic writes about have been echoed by many. A large and empathizing readership does not make a man a master. Neither is Shamdasani, though somewhat researched, possessed of any particular mastery, right? When he equates the psychosomatic symptomology with Carl Jung's depictions of Kundalini rising, people are bound to get confused, right? In this day and age, the right source texts have been translated, right? Good teachers exist. And with a little impeccable attention to the words and to our own minds, real truth might be uncovered and lead to lasting joy. Look, just wrap it up. If it hurts, it's not good. If it hurts, it's not yoga. If it hurts, somebody's doing something bad to you, or you are doing something bad to yourself. Even diving into the shadow and uncovering the darkness doesn't necessarily have to be a painful experience, although if you go deep and dark enough, yeah, you'll experience some temporary pain, but that's something a little different. Any yoga requires preparation, practice. Any yoga is best practiced under a master until you yourself have become the master. That's what the guru is there for, to make you the master. That's what the guru longs for. So any guru that you engage, if that person is gaslighting you, if that person is trying to take away your autonomy, if that person is introducing pain and saying, it's for your own good, no, 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 no. Keep your autonomy, right? You are free. The guru wants to raise you up, definitely. Kundalini is nature. She's benevolent, though she may sometimes be severe like any mama. Ultimately, she has your best interest at heart. She's supportive and empowering, strengthening, nourishing. And if you think you're going through a dark night of the soul for years on end, something's off. And that's not to say that there isn't a roller coaster of thought and feeling on the developmental paths. There is. But the pathway of energy, the nadis, the channels, the paths, they should be clear of debris, right? Before one attempts to drive through them. And just like any road, purification, right preparation for this journey, just like any other. Kundalini is your birthright. Nurture your nature. Nurture your nature, and your nature will nurture you for sure in all ways. Jema. Jema. Sarva Mangalam. May everyone know freedom.